Good morning. I will now reconvene the San Diego County Board of Supervisors meeting for the Land Use Legislative Session. Ryan, please call the roll for today's session.
Hey, Gambler here. How you guys doing this fine and lovely day? Well, according to you guys, election fraud does not happen at all, but at the same time, I could find like 4 cases where people use registration cards to gain access to people's ballots and vote for them. I have been asking for the past 3 years to take a look at the signatures in the homeless facilities that got you guys elected. You guys blocked me, have the registrar of voters file a restraining order, and then you stop a Board of Supervisors meeting halfway through, take a half an hour break, just to have me thrown in jail. To say that did not happen is bullshit. You guys are covering up election fraud. I want you to look at the signatures in homeless facilities for Newsom's election. And then all the signatures that look the same, take a look at the registration forms that come from it, and you will find the people that are committing mass amounts of voter fraud. I need you to stop covering it up before you go to jail. Do you understand that? 18501 is a law that will put your asses in jail. It is already proven the fact that you guys are blocking me from looking into voter fraud. You have stopped me from almost every single question I have, and you don't even answer them legitimately. Then you throw out a video that contradicts every single answer that you give me, which I don't know which one is true. Are you looking at the envelopes or are you not looking at the envelopes? Do you not think that anyone commits voter fraud through the election registration process or the vote by mail? Do you think people cannot open up an envelope without tearing the seal, switch out the contents, and put a new one in there? You guys don't give a shit about our election system. That's why you gave all our fire equipment to Ukraine up in LA and let their houses.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Hello, my name is Rusty Shackelford, D3 resident. I'm here to discuss the artesian horses owned by Craig Netwig and Deborah Barkley. I saw the county's own photos of their horses with many lacerations and emaciation to the point of horses with rib bones exposed. What a shame. What a disgrace. Why are only some animal cruelty cases prosecuted and not others? Those horses need to be immediately seized and transported to a rescue ranch. Please stop protecting the wealthy, connected abusers when animal cruelty cases are at an all-time high in San Diego County. I've been watching these meetings for a few months, and it's atrocious what I've witnessed. Where are the speakers we usually hear during non-agenda public comment? Is this the censorship by Supervisor Terra Lawson-Remmer that everyone's been talking about? I'm all for inclusivity, but how did a full-blown communist suddenly become the chair of the board? I heard that her listening session yesterday was disgusting, patronizing, and a waste of everyone's time. I'm going to ask the sheriff to promptly arrest Terra as soon as possible so this county can get back to a normal track. From what I've read, Terra's got a long history of arrests. Please rescue the horses and protect the people of this county. Thank you for listening to my comments.
Gambler. Well, I don't think any of you guys should go ahead and approve or disprove anything because each one of you guys committed election fraud or is committing election fraud as we speak by blocking me. That being said, you guys should be thrown in jail. Like, here's the thing. All these projects that you're doing, these $10 million projects, after the contract is up, all the low-income housing, are they just going to kick them out like they've done multiple times before? And then what about the money that is owed on that? Oh, that's a wash? The people pay for that. and then they could go ahead and charge whatever they want for the buildings after those contracts are up. So basically, you're just money laundering in this group, right? Oh, shoot, I can't think of your name. I'm sorry, Elvira. That's what I wanted to talk to you about a long time ago. I never sent you the emails and all that stuff because I'm too busy working on the election fraud issue that allows them to go ahead and money launder all the money across. I know that the election fraud and you're just doing your job, and if they approve it, you can't stop it. But at the same time, giving our money to these big companies and having a place for people to stay for, let's just say, 10 years, and then they get kicked out on the street, and then it's someone else, another group of board of supervisors problem, which they have to go ahead and tear out more houses, build new contracts for another 10 years, until finally there is no more room, and then we just start rebuilding those 15-minute projects. Is that how this is going to continue working in California and San Diego? I mean, people can't build shit because you don't want individuals to build it. You want corporate. You sold California to corporates. You gave all our fire equipment to Ukraine so that we...
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next caller.
Hey, weirdos, it's Truth. Item 2, reducing speed limits in Rancho Santa Fe, Fairbanks Ranch, and Escondido, despite the fact that reducing speed limits does not save lives. If someone gets hit by a car at 35 miles per hour versus 40 miles per hour, they're still going to be injured or dead. Speed limits aren't even recognized without enforcement.
Truth, I'm going to pause your time. You're speaking on item 2. Item 2 is a discussion item. The only item on the consent agenda is item 1. Unmuting you and restarting your time.
Okay, item 1. Give me a second here. I'm going to look up the agenda because I don't even know what item 1 said, so give me a second. It'll just take a second to research what nonsense you guys have been up to, especially when you flip things around and I don't listen to the meeting because it's quite frankly boring and you've censored too many people. So hold on just a second. I'm looking up item 1, State Route 125. There's so much to say about that because you're paying a couple of $100,000, I believe it was, to have maintenance. Is that going to include homeless sweeps of the encampments? Is that going to address Sandag complete scams that have been going on where they can't even operate one toll, yet they want tolls on every single highway? That unrealistic delusion, psychosis, aka a disconnection from reality. Is Terra going to show up to Sandag and pretend to be the savior and fix all of these issues on the 125? Does she know anything about maintenance to be voting on this? She doesn't need to, right? Though there's experts, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of experts. What's your solution for the people that get displaced from being kicked out under the highways, for example? What's the solutions for the fires that keep happening? So this is really easy. You don't have to know too much because there's so many scandals that happen within this county. It's very easy to discuss all of them. Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting because, we do need roads to get around, and it's people's, freedom to travel, but you guys try and impede on that in every opportunity that you get because there's been so much corruption with SR 125 and overcharging customers and, the firing of an employee who was bringing it forward, leading to litigation and costing the county more money. So, you guys shouldn't be even having this be a toll road. It should be paid off, but your plan and the plan of the state is to get people out of their cars and charge them out of their cars. So every road is going to be something where we have to pay to use it. And when there's already fraud going on, fraud vitiates fraud. So it's like, it just continues and... like I said, we do need roads to travel to, but you shouldn't be charging people, extra because the system is corrupted, and then, firing people because they're exposing the fraud, and then, charging us more just to maintain the road. I mean, it's like any chance and opportunity that you guys get or Sandag gets or, the cities get, you're charging the people more and more and more money, and we don't really have anything to show for it. It's not like, oh my gosh, everything is getting so great. It's like everything is falling apart, and we just get charged more. And then, you're taking away, more opportunities for people to travel by means of doing that, because, it's like half these people live where they're being told, and, it's like, who wants to live in a place where you're going to have to pay extra money just to go home? I mean, so it's like, just even for you, maybe you guys should be the ones that are paying to have it fixed. You know what I mean? I feel like once it comes out of your guys' pockets, then you'll start to understand and get a grasp of like what it.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Hey, it's Truth back again. Item 2. So first, I want to recognize that I exhibited the same behavior that Terra exhibits every meeting, every time someone speaks tough. Next, repeating my points. Reducing speed limits in Rancho Santa Fe, Fairbanks Ranch, and Escondido, despite the fact that reducing speed limits does not save lives. Because, as I said, if someone gets hit by a car at 35 miles per hour versus 40, you could even go as low as 15 if you want. They're still going to be injured or dead. Because speed limits aren't even recognized without enforcement, which means law enforcement. And since you supervisors back in 2020 and beyond made unlawful demands of law enforcement to get those deadly clot shots, we still have a reduced number of officers available to enforce anything at all. And according to text messages now made public, some of Terra's and Monica's friends, like Todd Gloria, Marty Vaughn Wilpert, and Jen Campbell, knew that was going to be the effect of those demands, and they didn't care. Yes, I found those text messages. See, I do a lot of digging on my off time. Even when referencing items like this about speed limits, that type of stuff comes into play. And I also have to ask, was practically the entire consent calendar made into discussion items in order to make it seem like this is a regular meeting? If you just make it a little bit longer by having everything be a discussion item, that feels like a scam. It's just kind of more disrespect when we're addressing items such as this, which should actually be in consent. But still, this does relate to Sandag, as people were mentioning, because the agenda is to get people to stop driving, and that's by any means necessary, including lower speed limits, because as I said, they don't save lives. So what is the real point then? It's either to make people feel better about injuries that are going unenforced, accidents, or to go agenda.
Yeah, this item should be on the consent. So it's weird that you guys sometimes will put it on consent and other times you make it a discussion item. But this all has to do with Agenda 21, 2030, 2050, getting people out of their cars to walk and bike and take public transit. And it's interesting because it's like, this brings in money for law enforcement. If they do, have speed checks, and they're going to enforce it, right? So it's bring in some extra dollars by, doing these types of things to kind of throw it at people and, just de-incentivize them from driving. I mean, eventually you're going to make them so slow that people are going to have to get out of their cars to be able to move at all, because you'll go from from 35 to 30 to 25 to 20 to 15 to 10 to 5, and then you'll just have a 0 speed limit and just, basically lock people out of their cars, whatever. Or, just bring in the road usage charge to continue to, make sure that nobody can afford to get anywhere so that they'll stay in their little 15-minute city. But it's just interesting to see the things that you guys do. And, sometimes I think, do you really know what you're doing, or are you also brainwashed as well? And just kind of doing the bidding of these elites who want to lock everybody down, and you're going to be, walking yourself into a corner as well. And then when you find yourself in your 15-minute city, you're going to be like, oh, dang, I didn't even see the writing on the wall. But I enforced it like a motherfucker. It's crazy. But, it's just the way you guys do stuff. So, I mean, I think you really need to think about when you're putting, not so important items in a discussion, and then you put all this stuff in consent so nobody can address it. And if you want people to stay on topic and all of these things, you need to be more mindful of the things that you do if you want to, even have public engagement.
Thanks.
Gambler here. I know you guys are determined to annoy the shit out of us as we're driving. Did you know that the state that has no seatbelt laws has the fewest amount of accidents? Freaking amazing, isn't it? You know, you add restrictions on us, more shit goes wrong. I don't understand where you guys don't understand these things. And here's the thing. Can you please fix Grape Street? I understand that you want to go ahead and prioritize Little Italy and have that traffic go by, but there is big-ass trucks that need to go get supplies out to areas. And here's another stupid-ass idea that you guys have. Why are you building in the commercial zone next to the border where all the trucks are that are going to tear up the roads all the time, and you're going to have to pay to resurface them like all the time because of all the housing that you put down there, instead of just keeping the big trucks only driving over in those areas? Are you that fucking stupid? Do you love wasting our money? No, because not even any of you are civil fucking engineers, but yet you are making the decisions on how we fucking run this shit. You guys are the biggest bunch of fucking morons I've ever met, and you're telling us how to fucking live. No. I'm going to run for the 4th Board of Supervisors District if Trump does not fix the election, and I'm going to put billboards on telling people how to commit voter fraud and asking them not to, but if they do, cheat for me. Get that bitch out of the office, out of there, so that we can actually fix this shit. If you guys want to go ahead and continue voter fraud, continue this fraud, continue bullshit, and continue not paying attention to a damn thing that we have to say, then fuck it. I'll go ahead and play your fucking game. What do you think about that? Please.
Your time is up. We'll go to our next.
I personally move forward along with, over half a dozen other elected officials across the region to ask the EPA to investigate whether they should come and look at whether this should be designated a Superfund site. We had thousands of individuals who have been impacted who also submitted their own testimonies about the impact of the Tijuana River Valley pollution on the air quality and the water quality and their health in the region. And so sort of corresponding and intersecting with this report back from the board, from staff, we also did receive a letter back from the EPA saying that they would not be coming down to do the a site investigation as to whether the Tijuana River Valley should be designated a Superfund site. So I know we have today someone from the EPA to talk about that. Staff has a report back on their docket item and their report back. So this is an opportunity to have a conversation primarily about the report back from staff, but we also have the EPA here to answer questions about the request that went out not from this board on whether we could potentially look at whether the Tijuana River Valley should be designated a Superfund site. So I just wanted to put this all in context.
Good morning. My name is Paloma Aguirre. I'm the mayor of the city of Imperial Beach. I'm here to ask you to repetition the Superfund site designation. We have one of the highest levels of absenteeism in South Bay Union School District. We have a number of elementary and high schools that are less than half a mile within some of these areas. We know because of scientific research there are at least 172 toxic chemicals present in this area that can be carcinogenic, bioaccumulative, and can be resuspended in the air, in the water, and the soil. It is absolutely, unacceptable that EPA has based their decision on data that's 6 years old. So if it's not EPA, if it's not the water board, if it's not us, then who? Who is going to protect our health? Who is going to protect the children, the immunocompromised, the elderly, that every day are reporting an array of illnesses? Thank you.
Good morning, Vice Chair Lawson Reamer, board, staff, and Happy New Year. My name is Marcus Bush, and I serve on City Council for National City, as well as the Board of Directors for Air Pollution Control District. And I ask this new year that you all have a renewed focus on this crisis. I think we all know, and I hope you guys agree, that this is the biggest and the worst environmental crisis in the county, in the state, and I do believe in the nation too. And I'll be honest, and I'll say this as a Democrat, I'll get political. The Biden administration has failed us on this issue. They failed to declare an emergency, and our governor, I believe, has failed us to declare an emergency. I think that the Superfund site is an opportunity. I know that there is concerns with it, but I think it's an opportunity to really send a message that this is a crisis, that we should address it. And I would ask, particularly from Supervisor Anderson and Supervisor Desmond, that you all use your political connections with this incoming administration, because the reality is our administration, this past one, failed us, and I think there's a new opportunity to work with this new administration to treat it as a crisis it is, and I'm willing to work with you.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Cesar Javier, I believe in the principle of repetition. Mom Steve now is smiling because I'm telling the truth. That's Councilor Bush, the former chair of the governing board, and along with Madam Tri Rimmer and the newly stepped down, if that's my English, the one who heroically stepped down, Madam Nora. They were all members of the governing board of the Air Pollution Control District. The air pollution control district is failing, and the leadership must step down too to avoid further damage. This is a damage control measure. All those accountable officers in the political arena must step down now, starting with Madam Rimmer,
Thank you, sir.
etc. I'm sorry, but that's the truth.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. We will now hear from...
Truth, everything I warned about an EPA Superfund has been proven correct. This was one of many political theater items Terra wasted county resources on. It didn't matter to her whether or not District 1's homes were on the line. Terra sideswiped D1's former rep with a campaign conference where she was sneezing all over future inputted Supervisor Paloma's back. Just because you guys have politicized unions in common doesn't make a Superfund a realistic or good option when it has negative consequences as bad as free trade fascism itself. Property values to decrease by up to 8%. How much more do you guys think IB can afford? Nobody gave the very few who submitted the Superfund application the right to designate anything under federal jurisdiction. But they don't have to worry, right? Because as part of the cleanup process, restrictions may be placed on the use of affected property. They may be permanent controls. Sewage and dumping doesn't even qualify for a Superfund. This is all a scam. There are over 1,340 sites sitting untouched. The EPA has failed to make any progress on their Border 2025 goals. Blaming the IBWC and not the federal government in Mexico is proof of political theater lies.
Just wondering how long people are going to have to suffer through your guys' negligence in pretending to deal with this crisis. The EPA should be, even making a statement to, kind of fess up as to why their negligence is also showing very clearly. And, it's interesting because you don't want to hold who is accountable, which would be the county, but also Mexico. And, instead of holding Mexico accountable, you're worried about commerce and making sure that you guys can still do business, all while they're poisoning people that you represent. And when there's, these plants that are trying to actually mitigate it and can't because they don't even have any funding, it's just the circle jerk of a bunch of negligence happening all while people are suffering. Their lives are actually in danger because of this. And this moves at such a snail's pace. It's like, what, are we going to have to wait another 30 years for it to even pretend to be even cleared up? I mean, very sad.
I'm very upset about the EPA's decision to not look more carefully at the Tijuana River Valley. And I want to make a personal commitment to move forward with trying to figure out what some of these other tools might be. So I appreciate this as sort of an initial look, and I'm absolutely going to be doing a deeper dive on this on this board item and figuring out, what else we could do as a board to investigate and identify what else we could do, because I think you all put out a whole bunch of various different things that we might investigate, but obviously they're very complicated. There's a lot of fact-finding that would need to be involved. There's a lot of regulatory agencies. There's a lot of players. And so I know this was sort of like just a very beginning. So I definitely will be following this up. We'll be pulling on this thread, trying to figure out, okay, what are all the other things that we could look at? What are all the different avenues we could explore to complement the work that's already been done? And I do want to recognize that there has been really important work done already. I really appreciate the work of our congressional delegation in particular, who's done a really extraordinary job of winning a whole bunch of appropriations to fix that sewage treatment plant, including recent appropriations that we hear are coming that I think aren't 100% confirmed, but seem pretty likely. So I really do want to thank our congressional delegation for all of that work. All that being said, all of that's very forward-looking, right? Like the work that Congress is doing to try to appropriate money to fix the sewage treatment plant. All this is sort of could take years and years to build out that sewage treatment plant. And I think that means that there's a couple huge gaps, right? Like one, we have some significant urgent problems right now in terms of air quality and contamination that even if we are able to fix that sewage treatment plant, that's going to not help anyone for like 3, 4, 5, 7 years. So we got to do something today. We got to do a lot more today. And even if we fix the sewage treatment plant, if there's contaminants in the water and the soil that are long-term contaminants, that are toxic contaminants, that could have long-term impacts on the health and well-being of our entire community, even if we're able to get the sewage treatment plant fixed down in Punta Bandera and at the border, and even if the water is clean. But if there's contaminants in the soil and we don't remediate those, then we're just papering over the problem. So I am concerned that the EPA made a decision to reject our petition without even coming to visit the site. So, the letter we sent said, hey, we have a bunch of studies that are old. It suggests that there might be a problem. We know that there's a lot of health complaints for people in the community, but we don't have the scientific expertise to really ascertain whether these are real problems or not. And as a researcher by training, one of the things I always said to my students is absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. And I think all I want is for the EPA to come out and take soil site samples. And to be very honest, if the EPA came out and took the soil site samples and said, hey, there's no toxins here, my answer would be great. Thank goodness. Like, I'd be very happy. That would be great news. But when we don't have the data, when all we have are studies that are like 6 years old from that are pretty limited, not very robust, and then a bunch of community complaints around like health outcomes, I just feel like this not taking the soil site samples is like ostrich putting our head in the sand saying, oh, we don't know 100% sure there's a problem. Well, that's kind of the whole point of asking the EPA to come out and investigate. So I appreciate the work from staff. I am very disturbed at what feels like ostrich behavior. But that being said, I don't want to just attack the EPA without giving them a chance to explain themselves. So maybe we could invite them up to answer any questions or to just explain a little bit about the rationale behind rejecting our petition.
I can't begin to explain the seriousness with which we approach this problem. We have a lot of programs that have been working on it for a very long time under the context of the Clean Water Act. We have our Border Water Infrastructure Program. We have the Border 2025 program. And when the more recent problems got worse and the county stood up an incident command, we in turn stood up a cross-divisional effort to try and make sure that we were coordinating between our air division, our water division, and the Superfund program, because we had to come out and support the county hazmat team because there was some concern that there were some toxic gases that aren't typically associated with sewage that had been reported by researchers that caused quite a bit of alarm. We were working with the county staff. I've seen the county staff report. It's quite good. It's quite thorough. It doesn't talk to the information that was provided in the petition by the petitioners. The petitioners had asked us for a prompt response. The petition, did provide some valuable information. We met with the Water Board, we met with the Tijuana Recovery Task Force, which under the Clean Water Act is working on restoration of the river. The Superfund program, as the staff report clearly points out, is geared towards dealing with hazardous waste, not human waste. The human waste has caused incredible deleterious health effects on the economy and people's health. It's a horrible situation. The solution here is to prevent transboundary migration of sewage. There is stormwater in that sewage, and there are hazardous substances commonly found at low concentrations in stormwater everywhere. North County, San Francisco Bay, how humans live, results in all kinds of oils and pesticides and materials getting into stormwater that unfortunately pollute the watersheds of our country. Our program is not geared towards dealing with stormwater pollution and the hazardous substances that are contained in low concentrations in stormwater pollution. So we recognize that there's some data that was in the petition that we received from the petitioners that indicates that those low levels of hazardous substances are present that are associated with stormwater. That's why we felt it was really important to engage with the Water Board, because they have the authority under the Clean Water Act to address both hazardous substances and human waste. And so, we're prepared to work with them as we go forward. I don't know that it's necessary for me to talk to the challenges that the petition offered from the standpoint of not conforming with the type of information we need in order to take a petition and do an assessment, right? I can't talk about that if there are questions about that. I guess I'll just stop there and say, I think that we're really ready to work with the county and the county staff. You've got excellent staff. They're very focused on the issues. The staff report was very thorough. I'm not sure there's anything I would add to that. I think that, if the board finds that there's a need to further explore the need for sampling, I would really encourage that we work with the state of California, the Department of Toxic and Substances Control, and the Regional Water Board to identify, to verify the need for that and the location of it. But we did look at the data, we did talk with folks, we did compare that data to our screening levels that we use nationally, and the results of that evaluation are contained in the petition. We were also asked to respond promptly to the petition, so we didn't want to wait. We knew the board was considering whether or not to submit a petition as a board, and I'm not here to discourage the board from taking that action. If there is a revised petition, we'll take a look at that. I don't know what that would ask for. It's really up to you all to decide whether or not that's a narrower petition with a narrower ask focused on a more specific geographic area. That's something that certainly could be discussed. So I'll stop there.
I would love it if you guys came out and did these site studies and told us, nope, it doesn't qualify for Superfund. I'd actually be quite happy. Then we would know it wasn't as toxic as I fear. So I think that's my confusion here of like I said, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. As a researcher, it feels like there's enough information here. As an attorney, if it was a probable cause, right? If I had to get a warrant to go investigate the Tijuana River Valley, I think there was enough information in our petition for a warrant for investigation. And I think that's where I'm finding the disconnect of what else do you guys need to at least go check it out?
Yeah, so I guess I would maybe invite a conversation about the evidence that is there, right? There is data there. There were studies that were done by the Border Patrol. There were studies that were done by IBWC. There is going to be more information coming out. I understand that there's researchers who collect data maybe in this space around sediment. So that evidence, right, does indicate that there isn't the type of source of hazardous waste that we would typically address in the Superfund program. And regardless, we do always kind of look to our states to help us decide what's important and what's not important. And before we move forward with a final listing, and by the way, the process for considering listing can take many years.
Oh, it's super long.
Yeah, right.
That's why I'm saying I know it could take a decade. So that's why I think it's very unclear to me why we wouldn't at least check, right? Like I hear you that we don't have the evidence, but that's why we contacted you, because we have concerns but not enough data.
Well, so it gets to a really important question we deal with all the time as scientists, and we are familiar with the watershed. I think there was a little bit of an implication that we don't know the area. We know it really well. We work directly with our water team, and as I said, the T1 River Task Force and our water division, who's very familiar. And I worked on the border program for a number of years, and I ran the border water infrastructure program for quite a while. So I've been down in the canyon collectors. I've been, all throughout this area, so pretty familiar with it. And I think that there's always a point in the process where you have to ask yourself, okay, do we have enough information to be able to make a decision, right? And so we have screening levels that we use to help us to determine if something is above a screening level and where and how significantly above it, to then say focus in and say, okay, let's go look here. Let's go look in this area, right? And so one of the challenges with the petition was it identified a 6-mile area. We looked at data that was kind of focused, on certain areas, but those certain areas were very close to where water comes across the border. And so we felt like we had a pretty good, the petition, gave, and the other data we collected from the water board, and frankly, the conversation we had with the water board resulted in us making the determination that we did. Again, a very prompt determination at the request of the petitioners that we didn't see the type of conditions that would warrant further investigation for a Superfund site. Now, that being said, Superfund has a different threshold than the Clean Water Act, right? The Clean Water Act has broader authority, and the Water Board has identified within their water pollution control plan under the Clean Water Act that there may be hazardous substances, and we're ready to support them, but I would really ask that the county work with the state and with us in a technical advisory role to figure out, whether or not additional sampling is warranted and where that would be conducted, because we don't, for a brief stint, we had quite a bit of money. Now the bipartisan infrastructure law has lapsed. The additional funding that we have is still higher than what we had before the bipartisan infrastructure law, but we just don't have the type of money to look, everywhere for everything. And we have
That's actually very helpful context, but why would you not check, like go do the site soil analysis and then come up with a more comprehensive plan, including maybe nothing to do with Superfund, or maybe there is?
Because there is an existing group that's managed by the state that is doing that work, right? And so, I've learned in the course of my career that, and working in both water programs and Superfund is really a program of last resort, and you rely on those programs that can do the regulatory work and get things done where they exist. I think that because there's an existing state-led group that has local participation from stakeholders, including landowners and the IBWC and other players, because that group exists and is operating and has the objective of restoring this watershed, this 6-mile area, we really would look to them to ask us or to work with us. And so that's, I guess, the point I'm trying to reiterate is that, we can serve in a technical advisory role, and I think that the Water Board can collect that data. The evidence that was contained in the petition and that we've identified at the moment doesn't rise to that threshold of us doing an assessment.
Okay, I appreciate all this. I know my colleagues also have questions, so I turn to Supervisor Desmond.
Mr. Montgomery, thanks for being here, but my head's about to explode. We want to do all of these more studies, all these more information and examining and looking for more data. We got sewage coming across the border. That's our problem. We don't need more testing. We've known this problem for decades. And I understand you've got a toolbox that you work out of, and you've got only so many tools, and you can only work on so many types of problems. We get that. But I guess telling us to go to the state, this is an international border. This is not within the state itself. So we're kind of turning to you and other entities and saying, help us. Is there an exemption at all that's possible I know you've got only a certain amount of parameters and you don't have human waste. Is there an exemption process or a variance waiver process or anything within your organization?
No, we can't change the statute, and there's no waiver or variance.
And is that Congress that has to change the statute?
Yeah, that would be a rulemaking too. Yeah.
Okay, and I get it. You can't fix this, but we want to open our beaches. We've had frickin' beaches closed for over 1,000 days, over 3 years, in Imperial Beach. And in Coronado, we're a tourist area, and our beaches are closed. And we get it. It's human waste. I don't know how many more studies we got to do to figure that out. And so in stopping the sewage coming across the border, that should be priority number one. I get it. But we as a state, this water is coming across, the sewage is coming across an international boundary. So we're looking to your organization and others. I'm done studying. We know what the frickin' problem is. Let's fix it somehow. And I'm glad to hear you're willing to help out. I sit on the water board. There's no money at that water board. I mean, unfortunately, you get beat up every time they try to raise rates. And so it's locally, we can't handle it or manage it. The state is points the finger to you and you point the finger at them, and that's where we're stuck at. We want our beaches open. That would be, we get it, there's probably going to have to be cleanup, but we want to open our beaches. And so it's very frustrating hearing we got to do all these more studies. No, we don't. We really don't. We just need some agency with the kahunas or something to step up and fix this thing. So maybe it is the new administration, but I appreciate you coming here and taking this crap from me, but it literally, it's. I'm done analyzing. Let's get this fixed, and we'd love to have your help. Thank you.
No, sorry, no clapping. Thank you. Any other comments from my colleagues on this item?
Thank you for your time. We stand ready to support the county, and as I said to staff, we are your partners in this in all ways. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Unfortunately, we need a motion to accept the report that we are doing nothing.
I'll hold my nose and make the motion.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second, but I don't think it's absolutely nothing. I just want to put that on the record, but I will second the motion.
Is your mic on?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit ill, so my voice is low. I will second the motion. I just would say I don't think we're doing absolutely nothing. I think we have a couple of different paths, and I think that this is a system that we have to work through, and that's just the way that it is. And sometimes, yes, it becomes overwhelming, but with water in particular, it's always been very complex, and our job is to work through what we need to work through in order to get to where we need to get. And I'm just glad that the attention remains on this issue. And I would like to thank the local advocates for that. And also the elected officials here, Paloma Aguirre and Marcus Bush, for continuing their advocacy. But this is a system that we need to work through. And I think from what I heard, it's clear that based on the type of waste and what we're dealing with, we have another agency that we have to work with, and we won't stop. So I'll second the motion with that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, a second by Supervisor Montgomery Steppe. Please call the vote.
And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Good morning, supervisors. Through the chair, Supervisor Lawson-Remer, Supervisor Anderson, Supervisor Montgomery-Stepp, and Supervisor Desmond. I'm Olivier Brackett. Up until almost 2 years ago, I was a manager at McClellan-Palomar Airport. I was blessed to work for the county for 22 years. In that time, I saw the benefits of regular airline service, both for the community and the county. Having the ability to take a commercial flight from North County would reduce vehicle traffic and pollution on our roads instead of having to drive to San Diego International. Almost every day, staff would receive phone calls from local residents inquiring about commercial service, demonstrating a great need and desire by local residents in flying from Palomar Airport. Additionally, when there was regular commercial service, Palomar Airport's flight schedule webpage consistently ranked near the top of the county's web pages overall for the entire county that was being accessed. You want to talk about ease of use, we had to purchase a bike rack because some people rode their bicycle with a backpack to the airport to catch a flight. So never saw that one coming.
Thank you, sir. Your time's up.
Hello, I'm Phyllis Trumby. I'm a pilot. I live under the flight path at Gillespie Airport. I'm the current chair of the Gillespie Field Development Council. I'm in favor of this American Airlines lease. I'm going to talk to you specifically about the evidence of noise, not the perception or fear of noise, but the evidence. So this airplane takes off at 100 decibels and leaves the airport in less than a minute. What's 100 decibels? The leaf blower and the lawnmower, which you are very close to. Nobody's close to the airport, the airplane when it takes off. The motorcycle on the freeway, 100 decibels. The closest home to the runway here is just under a mile from the airport. They'll hear the noise of the airport for less than a minute at 38 decibels. A whisper is 30 decibels. Snoring is 50 to 80 decibels. I think my husband's closer to 80. So the noise, the evidence of noise is it will be quiet.
Thank you.
Good morning, supervisors and staff. My name is Leslie Day. I'm a pilot. I'm the vice president of the Gillespie Pilots Association. I want to just reiterate what Jamie Abbott said about the grant assurances. I want to specifically mark the law, the federal law, GA 22A, non-discrimination. It will make the airport available as an airport for public use on reasonable terms and without unjust discrimination to all types of and classes of aeronautical activities, including commercial aeronautical activities offering services to the public. It is important that all supervisors vote yes for this. It will benefit the public and keep you out of a lawsuit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Jackal, and I live in South Vista. I am here to speak in the strongest possible terms against approval of the contract with American Airlines or any airline proposing to fly Category C3 size aircraft. Palomar Airport is a B2 size airport and must remain that. We residents who live in the path of the aircraft already suffer enough with the current airplane overflights. I have asked that a photo of the oranges from my orange tree be given to each of you. This pollution comes from the airplane overflights. This is the air I breathe, the air my neighbors breathe, the air the children at the elementary school up the street breathe. I can't imagine the loads of particulate pollution that will result from the overflights of the Category C size aircraft. This doesn't even begin to address the safety issues of the Category C jets on the B2 Palomar Airport runway.
Thank you.
You have the handout, Robert Gurman. I just would like to ask the board to bifurcate this agenda item into two parts, simply because both of them are very important and both of them are very different. And then I would like to take the county's own paperwork and go to page 7, and please explain how a departure at 6:15 in the a.m. can arrive in Arizona at 11:50 a.m. for an hour and 20-minute flight. This is a puddle jumper. That's what these called, are puddle jumpers. So that should throw this whole paperwork into question. And again, put this off for another date until they can get their figures right. Again, is there an FAA representative? Again, I've always asked this. Where's the FAA here? Does the FAA have a rep here to answer our questions or basically be cross-examined? I'm definitely going to run out of time, but their numbers are very suspect. They give no source grants.
Thank you. I'll call the next.
Good morning. Mary Ann Viney, Carlsbad. I would like to say to Chairwoman Terra that I absolutely agree with you that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, and that really applies to Palomar Airport because no EIR was done on this new jet that has more capacity for seating. The old EIR that was done with a seat capacity of 64 rather than the 76. So that means more air pollution, more noise, more concerns about safety hazards, like the Palomar landfill that is toxic, hazardous, and also has a history of methane leaks and fires. This
Thank you.
is also really bad for people.
I'll invite the next three speakers.
Cesar Javier, victim of ceramics kiln toxicity. This is a case on economic gain versus human and the thing survival. I think you heard it, sir, very, very clearly. Versus human and the thing survival. Respectfully, I am not in favor of this continuance of this airport operation as propagandized for a larger and bigger kind of nuisance, if I may say that. It works then, and now, solution, respectfully, status quo. You have reached the limit. It was approved, you operated in the past, and now, please don't continue.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, supervisors. My name is Karina Contreras. I'm here as a council member in the city of Vista. I had to come here to let you all know that the city of Vista, with its majority, actually passed a resolution, and we are not in favor of moving forward with these commercial flights. I've seen the increase in flights coming out of the airport, and there's a lot of environmental issues that haven't been fixed. There's a lot of superseding what's the jurisdiction of Carlsbad, and there hasn't been a lot to help folks around the airport. So I respectfully come here and say, please do not move forward with this. Thank you.
That was an arrogant caller. Ryan, before you start my time, please note that Paul's, I don't know, if you can go back to his call, please. I hope you guys do that. Give him the right to speak. Anyways, so that's all I have to say about that. But yeah, just regarding the lady who spoke in favor to keep you out of a lawsuit, she said that's a threat. And due to that cheap, weak attempt to strong arm the board into submission with that threat, I will most definitely be siding with my North County neighbors in opposition. And a huge thank you to Robert Gurman, who has been relentless in his efforts regarding airport issues, bringing awareness of what's been happening. You, Sir Robert Gurman, are a rock star. Keep standing for what is right, North County. Reminder, government will do whatever they are told to do by the ones pulling the strings. In short, they don't work for the people. Please, I urge you, start researching the UN Agenda 21. Truth, destroying allegedly poor people's quality of life with jumbo jets over their homes at 6:15 in the morning to benefit the rich majority. Big corporations like American Airlines is an outrage. Takeoff noise is not the same as flyover noise. Both the county and the FAA have refused to enforce noise pollution standards. With all the finger pointing, how is this any different than the sewage crisis? I say deny, then let American Airlines or the FAA sue about this, then file a countersuit, because apparently the county's got $10 million to blow because of 2 different disgraced supervisors requiring elections. What is this item and all items really about? Just like it says, maximize the return on investments. There's $1.4 million to be made. But wait, I thought the official narrative was that gas emissions are bad, yet the county and federal government are incentivizing air travel. It's been so short of meeting Terra the Tyrant, didn't really have to work to earn that $300,000 a year, right? That's the rigged system Monica loves. Have a good day, Pilot Jim.
Man, you guys are always selling people out just to do business. It's pretty funny because, like, what happened to your environmental god that you want to, worship and act like we got to protect the planet, but not if we have money to make? And who really cares if these people's health is in danger or they're going to be disturbed by the noise? I mean, it's funny because it's like eventually then maybe you'll do a study and see the problems that come with it and like the health effects of the people. I mean, all you have to do is ask Robert Gurman because he's been telling you for a very long time. And what was going to happen if there's a plane that crashes into those neighborhoods? That's going to be pretty scary, right? I mean, but I guess you'll just address it when it comes. Who really cares about the safety and what people think, right, when there's business to do, because that's all that really matters. So this is going to be put through because you guys, you need to make your money, but you can't listen to your constituents. And even if you have a mass number that are going to say, no, we don't want it, you guys do it anyway. Good for you because you're super politicians.
Thank you. Your time is up. And
I was very disturbed by this presentation. I want to make sure I completely understand what you're trying to tell us. So you're telling us there's some kind of very big top line number of amount of money that we would very likely lose if we don't approve this board letter, if we don't move forward with this lease. So can you unpack that a little bit more? I mean, my understanding was that, yeah, there might be a lawsuit, but we could probably win it. But it sounds like you're telling us that we would lose it. I just want to better understand. I feel like we're being threatened.
Can you hear me? Very good. Supervisor, I'll answer that question for you.
A little louder if you wouldn't mind.
Let me get closer to the microphone.
Thank you.
My voice is a little bit low. If the board were to vote to deny the lease, this could expose the county to significant legal risk that the county could be found by the FAA to have improperly denied access to the airport facilities in violation of Federal Grant Assurance 22. So if a violation of the grant assurances is found by the FAA may order all future FAA funding for not just Palomar Airport, but for the whole county airport system be withheld until the violation is resolved. So that's what staff was trying to communicate in the presentation, is that there's a significant risk to federal funding if a decision not to approve this lease is made.
And there were a couple different numbers in that presentation. So what's the total amount, top line, that could be at risk?
Supervisor, we did include some numbers in the presentation. Wanted to convey how much the FAA has invested in county airports. That was about $123 million in the last 25 years, and then about $53 million just at Palomar alone. So, we wanted to convey that the FAA is really invested in county airports, especially Palomar. We looked at what we would have to fund out of the AEF should the FAA stop funding for county airports, and it's about $5 million a year out of the AEF to cover what we wouldn't receive from FAA, and that's FAA is good right now, but that would really wipe out the AEF in a matter of a few years.
So $5 million a year, and what about that $150 million? Would they be able to take that back or claw that back?
There's a chance that FAA can ask for reimbursement of some grant funds that were used to maintain facilities at the airport, like taxiways and so forth. So, we do need to mention that there's a chance that FAA could ask for repayment of those grants for the payment improvements.
And I feel like what I'm hearing is that we could get sued either way. So like if we move forward with this, we could get sued by, citizen groups and the city of Carlsbad. I mean, I think we did already lose a lawsuit along those grounds. If we don't move forward this, we could get sued by the FAA. And so it feels like we're between both paths present possibilities of risks of lawsuits. So I guess I want to better understand why you think that the risk of lawsuit coming from the FAA is so much more sort of severe, because you didn't mention this risk of lawsuits from the citizen groups or the city of Carlsbad.
The lawsuit from the citizens group was resolved years ago. After a decision from the court, it was a lawsuit over the scope of the county's PEIR for the master plan. That environmental document provides coverage for the action that your board is being asked to take today. The time to appeal that lawsuit or to challenge the decision in that lawsuit has long since expired. And it is staff's view, after comparing the PEIR to the action today, that the action today is covered by the environmental document.
And what about, so what if we have a risk of lawsuit from the FAA? Is there any I just want to understand, is this a real risk? Is there any real, I know you cited 2 cases, but how serious is this risk?
It is a real risk. Just last month, we saw the city of Los Angeles face a corrective action plan from the FAA threatening to withhold funding not only for Van Nuys Airport, but for LAX as well, if the city didn't reverse a denial of a lease decision, very similar to the one we're facing here. That matter ultimately wasn't published by the FAA because the city of LA settled it, but a similar case involving the Santa Monica Airport was taken to a final decision by the FAA, and ultimately the city found itself in a position where it couldn't restrict CND aircraft. So in our example here, American is proposing to fly the Embraer 175, which is a C3 aircraft, into a B2 airport. Those are the same facts that we saw in the city of Santa Monica. And then another case that was very, very directly on point, Grayson versus DeKalb County, Georgia, FAA docket number 160513. Similar circumstance, a county airport sponsor decided to try to restrict airport access by denying a lease agreement, and the FAA found that would be a violation of Grant Assurance 22. So my point is that when you compare the risk of liability from a citizen suit over a CEQA decision that's long since been resolved versus the risk of a Grant Assurance violation under circumstances where the FAA less than a month ago, in December of last year, found that a local airport sponsor was in violation of Grant Assurance 22, under facts very similar to ours, we think that those risks weighed in favor of focusing on the Grant Assurance issue in the staff presentation.
Okay, I am very, I'll be honest, I'm pretty upset right now. I feel like the whole principle of democracy is that we should have the power and the authority to make decisions locally about what's in the best interest of our community. Carlsbad is my community. And, there's a lot of concerns about making sure that we're not impacting the quality of life, environmental concerns, but noise concerns. And, there's a lot of weighing and balancing. And I know that there's also some members of the community who would like to have, more local flights that they could utilize. But I think there's certainly a way forward that we could address and protect the needs of our community in terms of real significant concerns about noise and environmental impacts, while also making sure that we're providing more opportunities to access flights. If we had more freedom locally to make these decisions and make these trade-offs. And I feel like we're basically have a gun to our head, but the FAA is saying, take this deal or we're going to take something, I don't know, somewhere between $5 million and $150 million of your money and sue you. And that's kind of where I think we're at, and I'm mad. I'll stop.
And I know, but there are concerns, legitimate concerns by the residents about increased noise. And that's legit. The problem, not the problem, but what we're up against here, the Embraer 175 is actually quieter than some of the business jets that already operate out of Palomar 24/7. So it's actually quieter than some of those older business jets that are out there flying, and they can operate 24/7 at the airport. So the Embraer is actually a little bit quieter than some of those aircraft. And as an FAA grant-funded airport, we're bound by federal grant assurances to make the airport facilities to open to all types of aviation users, including commercial users, as somebody had mentioned. We already have a terminal. We already have a ramp area. We already have the facilities built for this type of service, and it's not being utilized. It was in the 1990s, and I think into the 2000s as well. So it would be considered discriminatory for us not to approve without a qualifying safety or administrative reason, for which there is no safety reason or administrative reasons. And these planes, back to the noise, they're actually quieter than the turboprops. And when Delta, United, American, they were all flying out of Palomar, and they were using the turboprops, which are noisier than these Embraers that they're proposing. And the Embraer climbs faster, gets away faster, and has a less of a noise footprint on the ground once that thing gets airborne. So there's really no grounds for us to justify denying them a lease, since we've already got that same type of aircraft operating out of there 24/7, and the voluntary noise abatement program, unfortunately, is voluntary. And should we vote to deny, we have a significant level of legal grounds that the FAA has come in and sued other entities who have essentially discriminated against operations at their airports, and they've lost every time. The FAA wins on these things. So we'd probably most likely have to pay the full cost for defense of that, and putting taxpayer dollars at risk. So as I understand under state law, we're simply required to enter into the lease agreement for the use of county property. That's all we're doing today, is a use of county property. So with all that in mind, and I'm glad to hear that Jamie and our Department of Airports can work on mitigating some of the noise that's already out there and exists. I actually was one of the lead people when we came up with the voluntary noise abatement program for the departures. We had one for arrivals, but I helped we were trying to keep airplanes over roads, over industrial areas, not over neighborhoods is a standard way to access into the airport. But unfortunately, the FAA, because their safety is their number one priority, they will direct and divert and have people fly over neighborhoods to sequence and prioritizing safety getting in and out of Palomar Airport. So I'd like to move the recommendation of recommendations 1, 2, 3, and 4A of this item. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to support that. I'm very mad. I don't know what to say. I feel like we have a gun to our head, but okay. I'll have to call the vote. So please, thank you. Thank you. Could we please move forward with the vote?
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson. That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.